Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Prince Magnum channel where hot rodding and romance do coexist. I'm your host, Prince Magnum. Welcome to kind of a strange Friday night. I know many of you have been looking forward to Faye's Corner, but tonight, Princess Faye is out like a light. She's conked. Um, she had this whole thing where she just could not sleep last night, well into today, and she crashed and crashed hard. What's going on, Mr. Gamerian? It's good to see you, buddy. Um, so I figured it's one of those things that, uh, because I was worried about her, I really did not sleep all that well myself. But um, basically tonight, we're just gonna have kind of almost like a chill and chat, but it's not quite. Uh, what there's going to be talk about tonight is, in a nutshell, um, pretty much tonight, we're going to be chit-chatting about um, Night Raven. I like it. I like it, Raven. I think that does a lot better. It a little edgier, and I will say this: it it works. It works because you gotta, well, hello there, Broken Mike. Welcome to the live stream. Um, so pretty much, you know, figure tonight we can chit chat about, you know, Mikey G. What's going on? Welcome to the live stream, my friend. Um, Basically tonight, I figured we could get chit chatting about the project cars. Princess Faye has already kind of given me the okay to begin looking for the engine for Project Spirit. We have enough. I'm doing very well. Tired, because we were on the go for a little while today. Um, a little worried. Princess Faye has not been sleeping well. She didn't sleep pretty well all last night into today. So it's about 24 hours without sleep. And that's why Faye's Corner is not on tonight, which the last couple of Faye's Corners have been absolutely dead. I mean, like just dead, dead, really dead, like dead, dead. And it's like certain people that you would have kind of figured would have been there weren't there. And it was kind of a screwed up deal. So she's pretty upset about that. But we've talked about that earlier in the week. We went into a great deal on that, um, which that's pretty much that was pretty much it. So that's the whole extent there. Um, but she's doing good. She's asleep for a change. Normally she doesn't, um, normally about this hour she's usually up, but she's out like a light. That woman needed some rest. But we're getting to springtime where there's actually going to be really good weather. Right now it's fluctuating. You'll get some time where it's like it's it's really nice. Yeah, she needs her rest with her work in the night shift. And see, I know for a lot of you right now that are from the UK, I'll give you an idea. Yeah, that's what it's like right now outside. Hey, they cut the damn back area. Looks good. Nice job. All righty. So that's pretty much it there. So right now, as it stands, we've got warm weather coming into the area. Oh, and for those who keep asking, there she is. There's Zelda. Hey, what's going on, Sea Dog? There's Zelda. So, uh, we have right now currently doing good tonight. Getting ready to chit chat a little bit about uh, the next parts of the work to the project cars that we're getting ready to do. Um, Sea Dog, we're this is mostly a DIY channel, mostly. Doesn't mean we don't do other stuff, but there's a lot of DIY here on this channel. If you're not familiar, then again, you might be. I don't know. But mostly a lot of DIY here on this channel. The DIY here on this channel is mostly focused around cars and romance. Of course, now we're starting to get into DIY stopping bullying. And, you know, earlier this week, we kind of kicked that off. As a matter of fact, had a guy pretty much all through last year who tried to bully me on my own channel. And no, that's a Zelda. That's a Zelda. She has been an ornery little shit stain. What the hell is my gosh darn vape? Ian, did you see my vape, Penny? Oh, there it is on the bed. Down. Uh, Again, this channel is mostly DIY, and we just kicked off where we're going to be, basically actively uh, doing videos on what you could do if if your children or you yourself are a victim of a bully. So that is actually something that we're looking at. Um, but as I started to say, Princess Faye has given me the okay to begin looking for Project Spirit's new engine block. New engine block. Okay. Um, the new engine block is for, basically to be rebuilt for Project Spirit. And I pretty well know what I'm looking for. It's just a matter of finding it, rebuilding it, and making it into a nasty monster. The type of monster that some people did, it's one of those things that it's not going to be done the way that everybody else does it. Everybody builds the same engine nowadays. And when I say the same engine, it's pretty much the same one right across the board. It's actually sickening. When are we going to see a magic show? That's in the makings. So I'm making it. No, I'm actually going to put a lot of me into this engine. Let me explain. Everybody gets hung up. They want to push the numbers game because when you go into this is not a joke, okay? When you go to the other channels here on YouTube, car enthusiast channels, we might have to do that here pretty soon. We might have to do that again soon, Ian. Yeah, we'll do a magic show. I'll see what's going on Wednesday night. I might have to ice up my wrist. I've been having problems with my wrist. But let me give you guys an idea. There's okay. When we're talking what we're looking at doing to Project Spirit for her new engine, and talking about pressing the whole, pushing the horsepower number game. I'm going to tell y'all uh, something that's really, really funny. And, when you go over to the other channels, pretty much when you go over to car enthusiast channels that you hear nowadays, like one of my favorites to laugh at, and I said laugh at, is Donut Media, which I'm probably going to be pulling some of the video footage and doing an actual real review where they got it wrong, why they're not talking about certain things. Either A, they really don't know everything that they think they know, or B, they didn't put it in their video because of the fact that people wouldn't understand it, but take the time and teach him. Like one of my favorites is when they did everything you need to know on the 1969 Dodge Daytona and then the 1970 Plymouth Superbird. When they did that whole episode, I laughed because they talked about the history, they talked about the engine and horsepower, which we'll get to that in a moment. And the other thing that they talked about was the people who drove those cars to winning NASCAR races. And the history of the car, those two cars, those aero cars, there's a lot of knowledge. Yes, they were right when they talked about the performance numbers of the 426 Hemi. The numbers were there, but if you know anything about the 426 Hemi, that engine was a joke compared to the bigger, nastier 440. But yeah. I don't have the facilities to do the engine swap myself. She will have to go to a shop. But every piece will be hand selected for this engine rebuild. Hey, funny games? Okay. I think I know who, yeah. So she will have to go to a shop, but every piece will be hand selected, that goes into the engine for the rebuild. If you will. Everything that will be done at the machine shop to the engine, to all the parts, everything. I already know what's going to be done. The engine's not even here. I already know it has to be done. Everything. Three things out of the gate. If you've got an engine block that you're rebuilding or you're assembling, whatever, goes to the machine shop. For three things should be done to that basically the engine and the parts that's going in it. Three things. The engine block needs to be magnafluxed. Make sure there's no cracks in the engine block, or otherwise the project stops right there. Number two, everything needs to be balanced perfectly. And number three, it needs to be blueprinted. Those three things need to happen every time without question. And any design flaws that's in that engine that will cause a failure later on down the road, get those. And I'm talking as far as machining, that if it can be machined away and fixed, now's the time you do it. So that's that. And whenever, see, there's a whole lot to engine building that most people even get wrong, in the car enthusiast part of YouTube, because there's really two sides to it all. There's your hot rodders, like me, the people that are building them and understand the tech and everything like that, the old push rod tech and all the cool stuff. And then on the other side of it all, with the car enthusiast, you hear horsepower. Over here, you have the people who know what it takes. Over here, you have the people that just know numbers. They've read the brochure. I'll give you a great example. Project Spirits inline six. You guys have seen me do some really, really crazy stuff with that little bitty six cylinder going around corners and doing ridiculously crazy stuff. That engine is the original factory engine. Engine's almost 50 years old. It's wearing out and it's showing. You know, I know where it's showing. But here's the part that nobody talks about. It's only 85 horses. I'm doing a top speed of, right around 130. You know, what gives? How am I able to do that? It's not rocket science, guys. But over on the channels that I just mentioned, they're car enthusiasts. They don't know the inner workings like that. Okay. Let me give you an idea what I mean. Go through my old notes here. Here it is. That's the short version. All right, Project Spirits, inline six in 1975 was again rated at 85 horses at 2,900 RPM. Foot-pounds of torque was 180 foot-pounds of torque at 2,000 RPM. Then with the automatic, they said there was a loss of power down to 72 horses at 2,900 RPM, still keeping the same amount of torque. But that's as far as most people will get. As with the internal dimensions, looking at the inline 200 from that time frame, see if I can. Yeah, the inline 200, same year, rated at 75 horses at 3,200 RPM with only 145 foot-pounds of torque. When you look at the bore and stroke of the engine, the inline 200 just has shorter connecting rods. So the stroke of how far up and down the piston goes is, it doesn't go as far up and down as the inline 250. The 200 and the 250 are the same size engine, basically. The only difference is how far up and down the pistons go. So feasibly, that means you could take an inline 250 and turn it into an inline 200 or the other way around, feasibly. Now that I've said that, why would I want to know all of that? Because the same year, the inline 200, to get the numbers that it got, basically to keep up with the inline 250, Ford offered, a slightly higher compression piston inside the inline 200. So theoretically, you could take the pistons for the inline 200 and put them in the inline 250, which the stock inline 250 six-cylinder pistons were only 8-1. So by doing this, I will see a small increase in performance. In other words, more horsepower, and it was on stock parts. These are the things that you will not find on another channel where I actually sit down and read. I actually got out, I legit got out an old Chilton's manual. And Chilton's, they don't make manuals like they used to. I don't even think, these are still sought after by true gearheads like myself. These manuals are like the old mechanics Bible, if you will. These things are very, very awesome. Basically, it was a book on things that you needed to know about a car that anybody could pick up. They were like this freaking thick. And it would offer a certain amount of years altogether, like say from like 1970 to 1977. every car that you could probably imagine from the United States at that time being authored right in that book, telling you how to fix everything. These things were amazing. So if you had like stupid EGR equipment from the 70s, which was just garbage, those, how do you think Spirit runs so well? We got rid of that bullshit. um, so if that's any indication. So when I say that I'll be looking at each individual piece that kind of goes in, basically, I will sit down and, okay, well, this is where this is going to be this part's going to be the best suited for this engine. I've learned from experience that when I go to do this, this is going to be better for her to run, and, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until, basically with everything that we do in machining, everything that we do specifically to keep her running solid, because I still have to drive this car every day. And we have to build everything up around the engine just to make this thing tip top. Okay. There's more than just that patch of rust. This winter has not been kind to either of the cars. Uh, we got a window on Project Lena that won't roll up and down. So that she's going to be going to the shop. Project Lena is also in bad shape. That car needs a lot of TLC. Um, Basically, Project Lena is actually lasting longer right now than most of her counterparts. Hey, what's going on? Third Gen 83. Just talking a little bit engine tech. Basically, I've been given the okay to begin looking for the new engine. Princess Faye gave me the okay. She said, we've got enough money saved up. Start looking. Now, as we'll be looking for the engine, we're also got other stuff we have to get taken care of before that engine even touches that engine bay. Because if I do it the way that I want, she will twist the frame. She'll twist something. So we got to beef her up a little bit. Project Spirit's built on a unibody frame, which is pretty commonplace nowadays. And there's a little bit of length with her being a four-door. So what we're going to actually have to do is go out. We're going to have to get some subframe connectors of some sort that'll go into place. And basically, I'm going to have to crawl underneath that car, and I'm going to have to measure out. Oh, thank you, Mikey G. It was my pleasure being in your stream and helping you celebrate another year. Here on celebrating a year here on YouTube. Had a blast. Had a great time. I know why. I know a lot of what you deal with, and I still have yet to fully get a chance to watch a video from that you posted earlier today. Your voice reveal. I need to get in there and look at that because yeah, I mean, it's good. It's good juju, man. Good juju. I know everyone was kind of blown away. Exactly. Yep. You already, yeah. One of the things that we got to start doing is basically starting to plot out the project, but we're going to have to get the engine here first and start getting the machine work done to kind of start taking a look at that. All the brackets, yep. Oh, I know all this all too well. You got to get, okay, guys. When you get an engine, when you're building an engine, there is stuff you have to get. Get out your pen and paper. All the bolt-on stuff, water pump, starter, um, you got to get like intake manifold, carburetor. These are things that everyone knows they got to get. Here's what everyone forgets. Here's the stuff that everybody forgets. Third gen, you started talking about you nailed it. All they always forget the brackets, the fluids for the engine, motor oil, antifreeze, power steering fluid, or in my case, transmission fluid. all of the odds and ends that, the belts, little brackets, the pulleys they attach. Oh, it's the neighbor kids up the way from the apartment complex. Oh, well, you'll be able to see. Out enjoying the backyard. They're playing hard. I'm not complaining. um, Sounds like that I enjoy. Trust me, I enjoy it. Um, but yeah, what third gen 83 is talking about is the odds and ends that everybody forgets. Now, I won't start doing that till everything is here, and basically I can kind of build on that because I kind of need everything here so I know basically what I'm building. Um, so now, but he's right. Now is the time you start looking into all of that stuff because, through the years, yeah, the engines are pretty well interchanged, and you can kind of bolt on whatever you need to those engines. But here's the problem: um, certain setups work for certain vehicles. I don't know. I haven't. I don't usually set those matches up. Which I've been on a losing streak lately. It happens. Got to fall down sometimes before you can get back up. Isn't that right, guys? Um, yeah, that would be the best bet. Mm, um, or to buy a complete engine and basically strip it, and that way you pretty well got a good start. Um, and engines again aren't just engines. I mean, there's a lot of year to year engines could even change. It'll look the same on the outside, um, and even internally, that engine might look pretty much identical, but some of the stuff, the way it bolts on, maybe there's been an improvement, that sort of thing. Ooh, shots fired right there. Well, we'll see about that. We'll see about that. There's your next match. There's the next match. I know. Wrestleverse is coming up. We'll see how it goes. Um, might have to go on that. I know right now I'm good as a mid carder. I'm good as a mid carder, which I enjoy the spirit of competition. I enjoy the spirit of competition. You guys know how I feel about that. Don't need nothing crazy. I just love that spirit of competition. But currently, right now, that is the plan. So I get to start perusing Craigslist, looking for that complete engine. Once we find said engine, then we got to haul it, store it, and then I've got to talk to some friends who have done machine work before. Well, then we get to gut it, and everything has to be labeled and the whole nine yards. And then once I have all of that, I pretty well know what direction I'm going in. I know specifically what I'm looking for, but I may not get that lucky, may have to kind of settle for something else, which is fine too. It's one of those things. I've narrowed it down to two engines. I have a first choice and a second choice. First choice, a little harder to find than the second choice. Second choice, you can just about find them anywhere. But this is it, okay? The two, I know that's the elephant in the room. What engine are you putting in? Okay, what engine are you going for? Two engines, okay? Are you afraid of the sharpshooter? Is that why you said that? Are you afraid of the sharpshooter? It's okay. Most are. That's why. That's why we see people avoiding it like the plague. If it goes on, it hurts. Actually, if you ever want to hear the biggest shots ever fired, um, The Rock was using the sharpshooter. Every now and again, you would see him use the sharpshooter, and Bret Hart actually said, "You're doing it wrong. Would you like me to tell you what you're doing wrong? I can help you fix how wrong you're doing it." that's that's how, yeah. He's like, I can tell you what you're doing wrong and help you make it better because you're doing it wrong. Okay, I'm down. But anyhow, so that's some of the things that like I said, um doing, love that spirit of competition. There you go. All right. But anyhow, so that would be the best bet, is to find a complete engine, or as complete as you can get it, needing rebuild. And for the record, and I know Third Gen will appreciate this, when you're talking something like that, if I find a complete engine and you put, basically, if I can get that thing to turn over, an old carbureted engine, if I can get it to turn over, I will get it to start. Well, before you take off, Sea Dog, why don't we go show off the project cars real quick? Is that what you guys really want to see? We'll go take a look at the project cars. It's time for a cigarette anyways. I'm scared of the dark. Somebody hold me. Shh, be quiet. Princess Face asleep. All right. Ah. All righty. Vape's just not cutting it right now. I could go for a regular cigarette. And we'll go down to the project cars. Get on to me all you want. I don't care. The one last nasty habit I got left. Okay. All right. Now, if you're not familiar with the project cars, hello. Project Lena, Princess Phase Ride. Spoiler alert. That was the point. And of course, Project Spirit. You got something old, something somewhat newer. This is Ian's favorite car. But Spirit, on the other hand, is kind of, Spirit, yes. No, they didn't, actually. That, my friends, is surface rust. This surface rust. Time. my friends, has done things like that. You can see it all up the sides. I got that to fix over there. That light isn't even right. And here, right around the headlight bezel. Getting a little bit of that. This is actual rust holes you're seeing actually happen right there. So we'll have to go through and this will all have to be taken down to the bare metal. What is my name? Well, I could tell you what my real name is, but the thing of it is that people will start using it, and out of respect for Alcoholics Anonymous, that's why I stay with calling myself Prince Magnum here on YouTube. But I do, yes. Sometime you'll have to catch me. Obviously, not in a live stream, and we'll talk about that. But there you go. And of course, Project Lena. We're having problems with this damn window again. Doesn't like to roll up. We'll fix it, and then it'll do its bullshit again. So we're sending her to a shop, and hopefully they can get the bugs worked out. Along with that, she's having a hard time idling right after you drive her for a little while. Catalytic converter is pretty well. It needs to be replaced. There's a bunch of little things. We got to go through the entire front suspension because I don't like the way she's handling. And then of course over here, Project Spirit. I thought I fixed the issue with the key switch, but we're going to have to. I think it's the starter solenoid. Is all it is. About $35. And a lot of the problems that I've had to deal with in the past on starter solenoids, simply put, starter solenoids from Southeast Asia do not work they don't work. You keep replacing them. And I remember like it was no, I'm sorry. In 7 months' time, I changed like 15 of them, and you should never have to change them that often. And I got tired of it, and finally I went over to Napa Auto Parts. But I think when we were doing the transmission and everything, I think something may have gotten slammed up against it or something like that. So you got the classic old school, kind of car, which she's not exactly classic. She's not classic anymore. And then over here, you've got something a little bit more modern. But there you have it. So those are the project cars. Now, again, all of the, Lena's going to have to go to the shop. She's going to have to get a lot of work done. So she's going to be spending a lot of time in and out of the shops. Okay. She's going to be in and out a lot this year. Yes, I have a paint selection, and I've actually been saving up to start getting that paint. The paint we're looking at is from Rust-Oleum, and it's dark blue. And normally everybody goes with metallics anymore for their customs. Well, I remember a time that there's really two types of paint to choose from in the old days. There was your matte finishes or flats. So like your rat rods and things like that. And oftentimes people mistake it as primer, which is fine. But most of the time you found a good gloss. And I thought about this for a long time. I want to do something kind of nostalgic. So, the type of car that you drive every day, Basically, I remember when I was a teenager, a lot of us guys, a lot of us, because I came from a small kind of redneck town, um, and guys would drag, uh, basically their what they daily drove, they would drag it basically out of a field or whatever, a giant rust bucket. We would fix it up, we would customize it, put a nice paint job on it, and then we drove it back and forth to school, work, whatever. We took these cars everywhere. And that's something that I want to do again. I enjoy doing that. I like driving like that. It's nice. How you doing, Chairman? Good to see you, buddy. So, as I started to talk about um, the when we're looking at vehicles today, most people when they build their customs here on YouTube, they go for the big numbers, but if you ever pay close attention, you see them built, you see them run for a little while, but then a lot of times, even here on YouTube, you watch those project cars kind of fade into obscurity. Hey, you aren't late. You're just in time. We're chit-chatting about what we're looking at doing. But I've been given the okay to start looking for Project Spirits engine. And as I started to say, I've narrowed it down to two engines. The first engine that I'm looking for is from 1967 or 1968 Ford 289. Now, there's a reason specifically why I'm looking for those 2 years and why the 289. Um, and it'll make sense in a moment. Those 2 years are right after Ford made some changes. They went to a bigger flywheel slash flex plate, and then at the same time, the bell housing got bigger, and that will easily interchange with what we have already done to Project Spirit with the automatic. I won't have to do anything else. Uh, and why the 289 when my second choice is easier to find? Okay, when I was a kid, and we're talking a real, barely out of diapers kid, that's how little we're talking. The first engine I ever remember that rumbled through cherry bomb glass packs and made an awesome noise. You guys know the type I'm talking about. Third gen knows exactly what I'm talking about. The type of engine that type of sound. The very first one I ever heard was a 1966 Mustang, not the fastback, but we're talking the standard coupe GT version of the Mustang, traditional hood line, basically, with pony interior, and underneath that hood, and it was my dad's car. Underneath the hood was a very nice running Ford 289. The very first time I ever heard that was, that's what I heard, heard that sound. That would be nice to find something like where I'm at. Most of those cars have been all sent to the scrap heap or gutted, or they're back on the road. Um, so yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, finding an old 289 is what I'm looking for. That distinctive, and the sound that I heard, I want to try to reduplicate, try to replicate it from when I was a kid. The very first time I ever heard that sound that turns everyone into a hot rodder at that point. It was a Ford 289 out of a 66 Mustang. And it would just be so cool. Hey, what's going on, Jesse? It would be so cool to have something like that in Project Spirit. It would be so cool. The 351 Windsor is a nice engine. Most people tend to forget there was more than the 351 Windsor. There was also 351 modified, But good luck fitting that in there. You can, but it's a tight squeeze. There've been a lot of guys who've done it though. A lot of guys who there here on YouTube. There's actually a guy who built. It was like a 70 something. I forget what year specifically. Maverick, and he managed to cram a 351 modified in between those fenders, and that damn car was a monster. He put it up against the Hellcat and just whipped that Hellcat all over the damn place. Just beat that Hellcat. Yeah, he beat that pussy. Yep. That poor Hellcat did not know what happened to it. It was and then of course there was morons in the comments section. Yeah, the Maverick was quite the quite the pony car. And I'm like, fucking idiots. No such thing as a pony car, no such thing as a muscle car. The Maverick was actually an economy car. That's what it was meant to be. Oh, yeah, I get them too. I get them too. It is what it is, brother. Let me double check. Okay, we're doing good. We're doing good. So, um, that's specifically what I'm looking for. But if I don't find it, no big deal because the 302 is an excellent choice. Now, the one that, yep, the engine that Third Gen 83 is specifically talking about is the certain years of the 302, which is ironic because it wasn't an actual 302. It was actually slightly smaller, but it was the roller version. That's well said, Jesse. I'm grateful that, today I can still. Yeah, yeah, I know, but it's one of those things I want to be able to say that I have the 289. That's he kicked my butt. He beats my butt in a special way there. And Ian knows the story behind the legendary moped man that we use in my videos. That guy is famous now, and I was actually telling someone about that who goes to that drag strip pretty regularly, and she's like, "What the actual hell? You were there filming?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Everybody does." So yeah, I said, "Well, the guy who was on his moped," I said, "People are want me to interview this guy," and she started laughing. Why? I said he was actually on the track with his moped that day. I said, as a fill-in against the race bikes. And she's like, "Oh my God, you filmed that, didn't you?" I said, "Hey," I said, "all these performance bikes, he still had no problem being the fill-in and taking that little moped down the track." True story. True story. Um, so that's the exciting stuff, you know. A lot to be thankful for these days, Jesse. A lot to be thankful for. Um, oh, and if you guys are wondering what I'm kind of playing with, to remove the dents from Project Spirit, I need a good hammer. I got to finish this one. We'll do a video on this guy soon. Um, Refurbished ball peen hammer. I've got to redo the handle and then basically drive a spike into it, more or less. He better hang on to those because it's hard to find those cars nowadays. Yes, indeed. It's hard to find the 60s uh you know the 60s performance cars, or for that matter, anything out of the 60s. It's hard to find it nowadays. It's hard to find anything out of the 70s, and it's getting really hard to find the stuff from the 80s now, too. Everybody's grabbing it up. It's nearly impossible to find my favorite era. And if he's running it through the carburetor, them old nitrous foggers. Hey, it worked. It worked. It worked just fine. But I'll begin looking for a 302 as well. Basically, whichever one I find first. But there is a reason why I've selected the 289. Yes, I know they pretty well sound identical. They're almost pretty much the same engine. That's really it. A lot of people tend to forget that. Oh, did you fire her up today? You need to start posting some stuff on that car. That is a nice looking car. I really like it. Yeah, that would be neat. See, I love that stuff. I keep saying I want to find one of the old Willys Overland World War II Jeeps to rebuild. They're not meant for speed, but they are so cool. I just think they're neat. I would love to find, and Ian, I know you're with me on that. Finding one of the old Willys Overland, you know, World War II Jeeps. Of course, we used those things for years here in the United States. It wasn't until the 80s those were replaced, if that's any indication. They were great. I mean, just amazing. Uh, they had a couple of design flaws, but you know, come on, they weren't meant to go fast. You don't drive them fast. You know where one is? Yeah. Once I get the facilities to build something like that, hell, here in the United States, as long as the cannon doesn't work, you can rebuild a tank. You can even drive it. Just don't tear up the streets, and the cannon can't fire. The guns can't fire. That's it. You can own a tank here in the United States, and you can drive it. I wouldn't mind doing it. But Princess Faye has already said no. Well, I bet you do. I wouldn't mind building one. It'd be cool as hell. Rebuild an old World War II Jeep. Yeah, he better be careful pushing those numbers. He's going to blow the guts out of that engine if he's not careful. Um, and really quick, I mean, yeah, we'll be saying goodbye to the old six cylinder, but that doesn't mean that it's going completely away. There's an excellent chance that we might still rebuild that for a different project. Original tires and paint. Damn, if they kept the original tires on the paint, I can believe, but the tires, I mean, that's a lot not as easy as it sounds because of problems with dry rot. It's been almost 50 years in some instances for those cars of the 70s. We're talking, 50 years. Hell, I was born in 79 and I'm going to be, 42 this year. But I love my classics. I say classics. But yeah, 302 is easier to find. But it's one of those things I wouldn't mind having the 289 just because of the fact that you're older than me by 30 years. Yeah. Not much is older than me anymore. Not much. Not much. It is what it is. But basically, from here, it's a matter of finding the engine that we want. We have to take it all apart. Everything has to be cataloged. Uh, in some way, shape, or form, it has to be cataloged. Then once we do all the cataloging and everything, then from there we have to begin. Basically, what are we keeping? Basically, what are we keeping? What do we need for the rebuild? So what we have to keep, And then, of course, um, once we decide all of that, then it's a matter of, then selecting the right parts to make this a solid running engine, like, the right intake and things like that. And then, of course, all the bolt on parts on the outside, whole 9 yards, even right down to the compression ratio of the pistons, the type of pistons. So, what are we planning to do with this thing? And I pretty well know I'm probably going to be sticking with, um, oh, that would be wonderful. Find an old, yeah. Most of the Granadas here, most of the Granadas have been crushed. Good luck finding a Granada. Oh my God. I've only seen one in the last 20 years. No, I take 25 years. I've seen one. And it was in good shape. The guy rebuilt it, restored it, and everything. And it was actually a teacher at a high school who had it. And willing to bet it was a shop teacher. Gorgeous ride. Oh man, restored, and he drives it. I'm like, that motherfucker is the coolest teacher on this planet. I don't care what anybody says. You don't see the Granada anymore, and it was kind of if you will, it rode on the same exact setup as the Maverick and the early Mustangs and the Ford Falcon and the Mercury Comet, the Mercury Montenegro. You guys beginning to see something? Really? I've heard that. I've heard that. Yeah. You'd use it as a boat anchor. I've got some interesting footage for you. Something you might be proud of there, third gen. Actually, I know you'd get a kick out of it. Because that six cylinder, I mean, again, here in the United States, okay, most of us throw those old sixes out. I like them. I like those old sixes. And yeah, the 1970s six cylinders weren't that great. In the 1960s, they were already supercharging the inline sixes in the 60s. Um, to give you guys an idea, there was a performance version of the Chevrolet Corvair, and most people also forget that, and that was basically a hopped up version. It was actually pretty doggone quick for its time. The Corvair does not get enough respect, and we're just now getting to where we can start seeing it, like the Yinko Corvair Stinger. Cool car. Cool car. Those the Yinko Corvair Stingers. Yeah, you don't knock that. It was an awesome, and it had a six cylinder, and we only used straight sixes back then, to my knowledge. Um, and in the 1960s, we always hear about the V8 horsepower wars. Well, there was also a horsepower war with the inline with the six cylinders here with the big three. Well, I'm sorry, the big four at the time, the big four. There was a horsepower war there. And that was one of the reasons why car companies were even starting to supercharge the inline sixes. There was a horsepower war with the inline sixes. They're good engines if you know what you're doing. They're really good engines. They're strong, and they have several advantages over the V8s. Several. Now, that's not to say that the V8s don't have their own distinctive advantages over the inline sixes, but I'm telling you, there are good engines. You could still right now go to farms where I live. Not a joke. You could still find them. You'll find guys that have been running Ford inline sixes or even Chevy inline sixes for decades. The same engine. As soon as the dang body falls apart, they just move the engine to another truck. Legit, and they've been going for years. And I've even seen every once in a while you'll still see one, an old farmer with a with a truck that he's had for years on his farm out of the 50s. I bought this truck and I've just used it as a farm truck. It's never really, I've never taken it off my farm. And and you go to look and it's an old pickup truck out of the 50s, big giant rust bucket, but it'll still start, it'll still run. And you'll start the engine, it'll run smooth as can be, but it'll smoke like a freight train. Engine's never been rebuilt. So here in the United States, we throw out what is really good for what's, basically what's, what's good over what's cool, if you will. We throw it out. And so a lot of people, will look down their noses at them. And now, because of the fact that now six cylinders are starting to get a little bit more recognition. Yep, Mercury Monarch. Yep. A lot of people tend to forget how good those engines were, and we put them in everything. You know, a lot of people tend to forget how really, really awesome those old inline sixes are. Now in Australia, they've been building them for years. They got it, and they're inline sixes that you can get down there. What they do with them, it's ridiculous, and it's like finally someone who gets it. You know, ask anyone around here. When you anytime I've ever been at a car show or anything, and I pop that hood and they look, oh my God, it's an inline six. And the old timers immediately, first thing they'll say, best engine Ford ever made, the inline six. Best engine they ever made. Strong, durable, lasts forever if you take good care of it. Yeah, it's doing that. It's doing that. Engine's never been rebuilt. Still going. I do need to get to work on a particular video that's going to kind of break down why some people have not had the luck that maybe I have had with the inline six, and a lot of it just like owning a business, location, 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 really about it. But anyhow, if you live in a mountain, there's even people who ride motorcycles, mine's still carbureted. Do I need to jet it down? Do I need to do something with the spark advance? Yeah, well, you might be all right in this location. Yep. Yeah, those old inline sixes have a lot. Real quick, as I talked about earlier in the live stream, I legit sat down and read all the actual stock numbers of the 1970s and legit was able to figure out just by changing six parts in Project Spirit, I can increase her performance numbers with stock parts just by reading an old Chilton's manual. And it would, and so it's one of those things. Those six owners are really cool. They don't get enough credit. And real quick, the inline six eventually would be turned into the V8. They have a lot in common. A lot of the same tech in the old push rod V8s that, believe it or not, we still build here in the United States. That's what GM's doing. Your LS, that's still a push rod engine. All that old tech, it's still there. It's still there. It works. If it didn't broke, don't fix it. But anyhow, it is where I need to go. I've got other projects I got to work on. Basically, I've got a couple of videos to kind of finish and touch up. So Princess Faye out like a light finally, and I'll be back to work tomorrow as usual. Of course, tomorrow's the Cinnamon live stream. Sunday, I haven't fully decided. Name one advantage. Gravity. Gravity. A well taken care of inline six has gravity on its side. And it's really easy. with your V8s, I don't care if it's a 90-degree or a 60-degree angle that they ride on. Gravity is still gravity inside of your engine. So, if you will, your pistons are laid over on their side inside of a V8. So, as they're going up and down, Ian, as they're going up and down, even with lubrication and everything, the friction is still going to be a lot higher than you think. So, it's resting uh, up against the cylinder wall, going up and down, and still, basically breaking itself down. You can take care of these engines. They can last a long time. A well-built V8 will last a long time, but in a lot of instances, depending on depending on the situation, in a lot of instances where I live, the V8s don't last as long as the inline sixes because of that problem. The pistons going up and down, and basically things wear out around them. With the inline sixes, the pistons are going straight up and down, working with gravity. So this allows the inline six to basically go straight up and down, working with gravity, lowering the friction. By lowering the friction, you're able to basically make internal parts last a lot longer. This is one of the reasons why Project Spirit's engine has lasted as long as it has. In most cases where I live, yeah, you can find V8s that have lasted for years, but most of the time, these are basically the person goes out, they start it once a month, and then they don't drive it. They'll go out, they'll start it once a month. They might get it out of the garage maybe once or twice a year, but that's it. And notice how I said that. They get it out of the garage. In Project Spirit's case, she's still a daily driven car. So, yes, internally, because of some of the issues that you get out of the 70s, Project Spirit's no exception to some of the problems that was going on in the 70s, but the engine is lasting. It's lasting just fine. Um, you know, it if it if we gutted that old six cylinder and brought it up to spec, where everything was trued up and rebuilt as it kind of was in the 70s, basically getting rid of all the design problems and no EGR equipment, and made sure she was breathing right and getting good gas and everything. Yeah, good luck finding something like that. That's pretty neat though. And basically you build that six cylinder, it would last a long time and it would still do decent. Even as she is, Project Spirit still does a good job. Affordable on gas, fun to drive. You know, again, we're talking tech that doesn't get enough credit. The inline six has a lot of advantages, and a well-built inline six runs smoother than pretty much many of the V8s you'll even find today. They do run extremely smooth. However, time has marched on. This is tech that most people have kind of forgotten. Um, Peace out in the Middle East. That's really nice. That's really neat how you put that. All right. So, just kind of, something to think about. They do have distinct advantages. And the other advantage is when I go to change spark plugs, I got a lot of room in that engine bay. I go to do a lot of stuff in that car, work on anything. I've got a lot of room to work with. And that's really nice. I do enjoy that. I do enjoy having all that extra space. It is really nice. Um, As a matter of fact, if there was a lot more hood clearance, going up, you could put all sorts of crazy setups on those inline sixes now. Three one-barrel carburetors. Shoot, there's guys putting all the way up to 4 barrels on those inline sixes, and they will flat get it. Um, I know down in Australia, that's something that they've been doing for years. Oh, really? Huh. Nifty. I just learned something today. Um, I the guy who taught me. Oh, really? Okay. The guy who taught me about the old Fords and imparted how easy it was to uh, run a car on moonshine, um, he he always, his thing was, uh, he's like, the V8s are awesome. He said, but you could build an inline six to outrun a V8. He's like, it's ridiculously easy. He's like, you could do it all day long. He said, if you ever decide to build an old Ford inline, he said, you holler at me. We'll make that thing a real go-getter. Unfortunately, he passed before that ever came to be. He'd actually passed about 5 years before I got Project Spirit. So it never came to be. So doing Project Spirit's inline six is actually was on my hot rodders bucket list to do an inline six, to work on a Ford inline and to have one and maintain it and kind of have fun with That's been on my bucket list for a long time. So I get to check that one off. I got to do it, you know. And to me, hot rodding in an old inline, I mean, that's like a rite of passage, you know. So I finally got my true rite of passage, and I've been having fun with that engine. So there's some advantages. I gave several. You only asked for one though. I know you had bad luck with inline sixes where you live, but you live up in the mountains, and by the time you usually get your hands on some of those old engines, they're in rough shape because being high up in the mountains. Um, Most people forget. Uh, Lurky turkey. I like that. That's neat. Most people forget high up in the mountains, the air is a lot thinner, so you have to make constant adjustments to the carburetor, otherwise it doesn't run right. And then you have the other problem because the higher the altitude, the harder gravity actually is. Most people forget that. Even the boiling point for water actually changes. Um, the higher the altitude, the boiling point for water even changes. So there's a lot of factors that have to be figured in. I know in 1977, General Motors on Oldsmobile Delta 88s had to offer with their vehicles what they called the high altitude package. It was a specific package for vehicles that were going to be basically their home. Yeah, you Henry ass. Um, because where you live, the gravity actually. Um, Ian, if you're in the background, I know you know a little bit about what I'm about to mention. Snipers actually know um, that the higher the altitude, the harder gravity will actually pull something to the ground. So the higher up in the mountain, so sometimes you would think, from an elevated point, a sniper would just be able to point down at the target. They actually have to elevate the rifle a little bit, and the reason being, as the bullet, obviously, gravity is going to be taking effect, trying to pull that bullet to the ground. Well, the problem is that the higher the altitude, the harder gravity pulls. So with that being said, engines in mountainous areas, there's more sky, if you will, stacked on top of that engine, and gravity is still gravity inside your engine. So what happens is that even as the engine's working, gravity's working harder against that engine. That's why where he lives, inline sixes don't do so hot. All right, Ian, you go rest up, brother. You already have. So that's why they don't do so hot where he lives. That, and again, where he lives, he's got to have those extra two cylinders. So you'll oftentimes, I haven't said this in a while, um, because he heard me say that once a year you should pull the wheel bearings out of your vehicle and grease them and everything like that. We don't do that where I'm at, and I'm like, and there you go. Because of the fact that depending on where you live, if you say something about a car, sometimes you might sound like an idiot, but where you live, it's genius, you know? So it's like that. Because where I live, it's a lot of dirt roads. And cars that have like the modern cars today don't do so hot down here. Usually they're falling down They're falling apart, within, 7 to 10 years, the engines are going. And the reason being is because Missouri has a lot of dirt roads. And if you live in Missouri and you've never been on a dirt road, you really haven't lived in Missouri. That's just how it is. At some point, you're going to be on a gravel road, a dirt road, something like that. And modern engines where I live, they even a well taken care of one that's been well taken care of usually doesn't last super long because of that reason. You know, um, yeah. So just kind of, if you will, that's why. Uh, that's what and where he lives. High up in the altitude, uh, fuel injected engines do better where he lives. So when I say something like that, he's like, they do fine where I live. Yeah, for good reason. For good reason. Location, location. You'll hear me talk about that. But yeah, that's actually a thing here in the United States where, if you will, um, depending on where you live, depends on what you need to buy. So with third gen, he's actually right where he lives. But I will say this, with the way his vehicle is set up, if he brought his Maverick to where I live, he would swear he swapped out the engine for a rocket because we're not high up in the, I think like 600 feet above sea level, something like that. It's not that bad. You know, right where I live, it's not mountainous really. It's a lot of hilly. You go up and down through the hills and everything, and there is some small mountains in the area. Well, some mountains nearby, but nothing. We don't go high up in the altitude. It's like 600. It's not that bad. I know if you go to Union, Missouri, it's only 32 feet above sea level. That's it. So if that's any indication, so if he came here, he would swear to God his car was automatically had a rocket engine underneath it. Open it up and just go all day long because different air, different. It's same gravity, but just different, if you will. It's the same but different. If you want, learn something new every day, right? So that's where you get to, that's why where he lives, he won't like the inlines because they don't do so well where he's at. He has to have the two extra cylinders with a carbureted engine. They won't do so well. But where I live, they do amazing, amazing, and they oftentimes long outlast the V8s. Long outlast the V8s. Million mile inline six engines where I live. Where he lives, you're lucky if you get 200,000 or even 250. You count your blessings, you make 250,000 out of those old engines. So there you go. So that's pretty much the name of the game right now. I'm beginning looking for that engine and building something retro. We're going to build something retro, something you don't see anymore. We're even going to try to use some names that some people tend to forget, still exist. All righty, so that does bring us to a good stopping point. Appreciate y'all for being here. I've got a lot of business to handle after the stream. So it's going to be busy, busy, busy still for me. That's true. Uh, but there's ways to get around all that. There is ways. Ways and means, my friend. Ways and means. So now that I've said all that, I do need to wind it down for the night. So that brings me to the spot where I say to all of you, real quick, before I forget, the link to the merch store is in the description box. Grab that link if you want your own Prince Magnum channel merchandise. It's right there, including exclusive Princess Faye artwork, Project Spirit logo, merchandise in there all day long. And I've got to get a picture from a friend that's going to have to definitely be turned into a t-shirt. So that does bring us to an excellent stopping point. So for all of you out there, get out there and work on a project. Don't care what it is. Just do something with yourself. Remember, idle hands and a creative mind go together like oil and water. If you have a sweetheart, sweep them off their feet and do something special for them today. And as always, for all of you out there, no one out there has told any of you that they love you today. Prince Magnum does. God bless you and have a happy 24. Thank you.